Hey, history besties! Welcome back to Miss F Spills the Tea, where we don't just talk history, we gossip about it. Today, we're dishing on the juicy drama of the 1960s and 70s, the counterculture movement, anti-war protest, and how Richard Nixon played his hand with the so-called silent majority. Buckle up, tea sippers, because this one's full of rebellion, protest, and political chess moves that shook America to its core. All right, let's rewind a bit. It's the 1950s. Picture it. Poodle skirts, Elvis on the radio, and the perfect American dream. White picket fences, cookie cutter houses, and everyone trying to outsmile each other at neighborhood barbecues. Conformity was the name of the game, honey. You didn't rock the boat. You followed the rules, went to church, and voted how everyone else did. Yawn. But as the 60s rolled in, a new generation was over it. They were tired of the Leave It to Beaver lifestyle and were ready to shake things up. Enter the Counterculture Movement, a rebellious crew of hippies, beatniks, and free spirits who were like, no thanks to the status quo. They swapped out conservative suits for tie-dye shirts and bell-bottoms, traded neatly combed hair for long wild manes, and questioned everything. From the government to societal norms, they were done conforming. And what were they protesting the most? The Vietnam War. Whew! This was the era of the anti-war protests like never before. This war was everywhere, on the TV, in the papers, and especially on college campuses. And the young people were not here for it. They were out there chanting, "Hey, hey, LBJ, how many kids you killed today?" A direct call out to Lyndon B. Johnson. These protests weren't just peaceful sit-ins. They were loud, proud, and sometimes downright chaotic. Remember the Kent State shooting? In 1970, the National Guard fired into a crowd of students, protesters at Kent State University, killing 4 and injuring 9. Talk about a national scandal. The whole country was shook. And don't even get me started on the draft resistance. Nothing says rebellion like burning your draft card. Young men were out here being forced to fight a war they didn't believe in, and they were furious. They took to the streets, they burned their draft notices, and some even fled to Canada to dodge the draft altogether. The government was like, "Excuse me?" But the counterculture was firm. This war was not it. And then there was Woodstock, honey, the music festival that became legendary. 3 days of peace, love, and rock and roll. Over 400,000 people showed up to a dairy farm in New York in 1969. Imagine that. No cell phones, no social media, just word of mouth, and still everyone was there. But it was more than just music. It was a cultural statement. A big, loud, "We're not going to conform." Bands like The Who, Jimi Hendrix, and Janis Joplin rocked the stage. People were dancing, celebrating life, and openly protesting the war. Jimi Hendrix's rendition of the Star-Spangled Banner with electric guitar screeches mimicking bombs. Iconic. It was a not-so-subtle jab at the U.S. military, and it resonated. But wait, not everyone was vibing with the counterculture. There were plenty of Americans who were side-eyeing all these protests and asking, what happened to good old American values? And Richard Nixon knew exactly how to play to that crowd. He coined the term silent majority. Basically, all those Americans who weren't out protesting or rocking tie-dye, but were quietly supporting the government and the war effort. Nixon's pitch, "Hey, I see you. You're the real Americans." It was smart, shady, and totally effective. He painted the protesters as loud, unpatriotic troublemakers and positioned himself as the defender of traditional values. Oh, he was slick.
American youth today has its fringes, but that's part of the greatness of our country. I have great faith in American youth. The youth of today can change the world. And if they understand that, I think that we're going to go forward to a great age, not just for Americans, but for peace and progress for all the people in the world.
Nixon won the 1968 election partly because of this strategy. He promised to restore law and order, appealing to those fed up with the chaos of protest and riots. And with his Southern strategy, he pulled in conservative Southerners by subtly playing to racial tensions. Scandalous, but hey, it worked. The counterculture movement eventually fizzled out as the 70s rolled on. The Vietnam War ended, the protests died down, and people moved on. Some former hippies traded their love beads for business suits and joined the workforce. Others kept the spirit alive through activism and environmentalism. But don't get it twisted, the counterculture's impact is still felt today. From music to fashion, from political activism to social justice movements, they changed the way people think about authority, freedom, and individuality. So let's recap this piping hot tea. The counter movement said no thanks to conformity and embraced peace, love, and rebellion. The anti-war protests shook the nation with young people boldly resisting the Vietnam War and the draft. Woodstock was the ultimate counterculture celebration, a peaceful protest wrapped in rock and roll. Meanwhile, Nixon played it cool, appealing to the silent majority who supported traditional values and the war. And honey, he won because of it. Woo! The 60s and 70s were a wild ride, and honestly, that tea was scalding hot. It was a time of change, resistance, and redefinition of American identity. Love them or hate them, the counterculture kids made history. Thanks for tuning in to Miss F Spills the Tea. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode. And hey, drop a comment below. Are you more Team Hippie or Team Silent Majority? Let's get that debate brewing.